Okay, I just want to give you guys some due dates. Notes and sketches are due when we take the exam. I bet your question next is, when is the exam? It's done. We'll do it when we finish Unit 1. And so sometimes I get ahead, a little bit ahead. Sometimes I get a little bit behind. So I don't know the exact date. As we get closer, we'll zero in on a date. All right, but it's coming up soon. All right, your soft chalks. Soft chalks, like I said before, are due at the end of the semester. They are for your D2L grade, and I haven't yet figured out how to make due dates for those. So they are just due at the end of the semester, but do them now. Do them as we are going through the chapters. Your detailed drawing is due at the exam, and your article assignment is due at the exam. All right, and that is finding an article for Unit 1. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. For the Beast, we've already chosen an artwork. The library assignment, that means showing me a book that you got from the library, is due on September 18th. All right, that is a week from today. Just curiosity, a show of hands, how many people have already been to the library? 1, 2, 3. All right, out of a class of about 15. All right, you had this week and the weekend to do it. Do not wait until last minute. Go online now and find a book and have them send it to the library, because if you wait till the last minute, the book won't be available. Do not wait until the last minute. Do it now. 3 maps were due today. I just took a grade for having it done, and finding an article will also be due September 18th. And I want to talk about finding the article now. So I'm going to escape this, and we're going to go to, all right. If you go to your courses and click on the CHAD, and then scroll down, there's a black figure or a black folder that has this lecture videos. Click on the link to class lecture video playlist, and that'll take you to my channel. There's the video of how to find an article. I recorded a little bit this weekend. I was able to get to JSTOR. It looks like you're able to get to JSTOR at home, but not at school. In fact, let's just give it a try. Go to libraries, databases, art and music, articles, JSTOR. And if it gives me a long waiting time, that's the problem that we have at school. So, but doing this from home, it worked very quick and it worked well. So I'm not going to waste any more time on this. The video is uploaded for you to on how to find an article, what's a good article, what's a bad article. And now let's get into the lecture. We're doing Mesopotamia Part 2. We left off with Lamassu. Slideshow from current slide. Let's click on this, and then we'll click on that. Show presenter view. All right. And we finished up with Lamassu yesterday. And did we watch the video in this class? No, right. Let's see if we can get it to work. I've got a spinning circle of death on my screen. All right. Basically, this video is it's a computer-generated palace. And so it gives you an idea of what the palace would have looked like. It's the Assyrian palace. And oh, so frustrating. All right. Let's do this then. Picture settings, we'll go to display. We'll go to duplicate the displays. Keep changes. All right, let's try this again. All right. Now we can all see it. So this is an Assyrian palace. And I want you to notice at the entrances, you'll see the Lamassu. Right here. And that shows how they guarded the palace. And then we go inside, and on these walls are different relief sculptures. And we're going to look at those in just a second. And as we look at these relief sculptures, I just wanted you to get a sense of where these relief sculptures come from. So this is actually a pretty cool video just showing where this art comes from. Here's a couple more Lamassu. I'm going to stop the video there. All right, it gets kind of redundant here, but it gives you an idea of where this stuff comes from. All right, let's get back into, nope. Let's get back into, from current slide, all right. There we go, all right. So we looked at Lamassu last time, and and we're going to begin today with the Assyrian relief sculpture. And this is from that Assyrian palace that I just showed you. And a lot of these images are of the military victories and hunting expeditions. And they have a lot more detail than previous civilizations. All right, can you tell what's going on in this image right here? There's people trying to attack the fort. That is correct. We have a fort right here on the right side. You can see the battlements. There's people on the inside of the fort protecting it. Then we have archers over here, and then we have swimmers over here. And I think what they're holding is bags of that are made out of animal skins filled with air so that they can breathe. And then, but they are being shot at. There's arrows in them. They're being shot at by the archers as they get close. Here is another one where King Ashurbanipal is sacking the city of Susa, and the troops are taking away all the goods from the city. And up here, they are dismantling the fortress and taking it apart. We got a close up of. I just wanted to show you the detail that's in here, like the abstracted beard, the curls that are in the beard, and then this this hair up here looks like. What is the food that we eat? The noodles that comes in the cheap package, ramen. All right, he's got ramen hair up here. All right. But more importantly, and I don't know about importantly, but along with all these military victories, scenes of military conquest, is a lot of scenes of hunting, where the emperor or the king is shown as a hunter. And the reason why it's important to show him as a hunter, to show that he is a badass, all right, to show that he is strong, that he has courage. And what is he hunting? Lions. He's hunting lions, all right? So only a badass hunter can hunt badass animals. And so he is on his chariot, and the chariot driver drives him around, and he shoots arrows from his chariot. And then he has soldiers behind him to make sure that he doesn't get harmed. So it's kind of like a safety net, or it shows him as a uh, that he's in command of all of this right here. And you can see that there's arrows inside the lion. That lion's not having a very good day. Now, I want you to know what a relief sculpture is. All right. So I should have a definition up here, but relief sculpture is sculpture that is carved into a wall or flat surface. A relief sculpture is sculpture that is carved into a wall or flat surface. Now, these Assyrian reliefs are called low relief. I want you to write that term down, low relief. Low relief, it means it only comes out just a little bit from the wall. A good example of low relief is a quarter. If you have a quarter in your pocket and it has the image of a person on it, that's low relief on it. Who's on the quarter? Is it Washington that's on the quarter? All right. And on the other side, it's an eagle, or whatever state you have, or there's all kinds of, up until 2000 it had just an eagle on the other side. That is low relief. High relief is when it comes out high from the wall or far from the wall. And you can see it becoming high relief right here because the shadows are darker. Whereas this is just barely carved into the wall. This is carved a little bit deeper. Again, there's all this carnage with these lions. These lions are having a very bad day, and it makes me feel sorry for the lions. And one of my favorite images from this palace is this guy right here. This is an Apkallu, Apkallu, and he's standing between two sacred trees. This is a sacred tree, and this is a sacred tree. And he's holding this pine cone looking object right here. That's a Melilu. And he's holding a bucket called an Bandudu. And what he's doing is he's the act of purification. He's showing the king as a purifier. And notice the two knives. He has two knives right here in his shirt. Anyways, I think that's a pretty cool looking creature. And just hanging out, picking pine cones, putting them in his bucket. So then we have the fall of the Assyrian Empire. And the Assyrian Empire was never secure. It was far weaker than anyone realized. They had frequent rebellions. The army did not have the manpower to support the empire. And Assyria disintegrated at the end of Ashurbanipal's rule. And it was invaded by Medes in 612 BC. And what rises out of the Assyrian Empire is the Neo-Babylonian Empire. And they wish to capture the splendor of Babylon. All right, any questions about anything so far? All right, we are going to go to our next Whoops. Part 3. Okay, so we are now going to look at Neo Babylonian art. We're still in chapter 2. So Babylon is pretty much in central Iraq, and we're going to take a look at the kingdom under King Nebuchadnezzar. He was involved in lots of wars, and he put down uprisings and enemy armies. He was portrayed as an oppressive and cruel enemy of the Jewish people. He conquered Judea. He exiled the Jews from the city, and then turned to building in order to create a legacy. And he wanted to make Babylon not just a great city, but legendary. So he restored Babylon to its former glory and then some. All right, so this building right here, Etamananki, is a massive ziggurat in Babylon. And some think this ziggurat was the inspiration for the story of the Tower of Babel. And one of his other projects of Nebuchadnezzar was the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. You've heard of that, right? That's one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. And we're going to skip past this video. Well, the seven wonders, there was the Great Pyramid of Giza, the statue of Zeus at Olympia, the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, the temple of Artemis at Ephesus, the lighthouse of Alexandria, the Colossus of Rhodes, and the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. So, with the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, the story goes that Nebuchadnezzar II and his wife Artemis, or Amytis, she was from Media, a kingdom far away, and she left her home country, and moved in to be with Nebuchadnezzar. But notice how flat this area is in Iraq. Her home country is full of mountains and greenery and hills and valleys. And so she got all sad because she missed her homeland. So Nebuchadnezzar constructed a structure with tiers and gardens to imitate the valleys of her homeworld, and the gardens to represent the greenness of her homeland. And water was not only channeled from the Euphrates, but taken up to upper levels to water the plants. And so there's lots of like ideas about what the Hanging Gardens of Babylon would have looked like. Anyways, he imported plants from her homeland, and the Greeks that had visited Babylon boasted of its beauty. But there's a problem with this whole story. Archaeologists have never found any proof it ever existed. The earliest mentions about hanging gardens come from 200 years after Nebuchadnezzar died. And there's no written evidence that he ever bragged about. And he bragged about a lot of other things he did. So he would have bragged about the hanging gardens of Babylon. So some people think that the gardens were real, but falsely attributed to Nebuchadnezzar. There was another Mesopotamian king that had built something similar, and he excelled at engineering water systems. So it's possible that the Greeks visiting the area called the whole area Babylon when they were really never in Babylon's in the city proper. All right, so with Babylon, it was estimated that it had a population of 200,000, and it was the biggest city on earth at that time. And Nebuchadnezzar's construction projects transformed Babylon into a sort of paradise on earth. and it was the most aesthetically pleasing city in the ancient world. Now we're going to focus on the eighth city gate of Babylon. So there is this walkway up to the city, and we're going to look at this structure right here. Oh, yeah, there's an arrow right there, and we're going to look at that. And so this is what it would have looked like traveling up to the city. The gates were meant to slap visitors' faces with the might of Nebuchadnezzar. It was meant to awe and impress those passing through the gate. We're talking about the Ishtar Gate now. Now, what color is the gate? Right, it's blue. And they're made of mud brick with a blue glaze on it. That's what gives it its blue color. Now, the Ishtar Gate has been taken apart and reassembled in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. I would imagine they would have numbered them and made a chart. But it's possible. There are castles that have been moved from Europe to America the same way. You take it apart brick by brick, and then you put it back together. Yeah, it's a big job. All right, so we have these creatures that are on the wall of the gate. Can you tell what these creatures are? Yeah, it looks like a horse. I think that's a unicorn up there. And then this right here in the middle is a dragon. And then at the bottom, we have a bull. And then leading up to the gate, we have lions. And these lions represent Ishtar, the goddess of war and wisdom. And they are orderly, like on parade. That shows that they are trained and controlled. And this gives a sense of symmetry, it gives a sense of order. And the ferocious faces are guarding the city. He's saying, "Rawr." All right, and then we have the bulls. Bulls in ancient Mesopotamia are just as ferocious as the lion. They are associated with the god Hadad, and they also represent the fertility of the land and the harvest. And they're not only protecting the city, but they're providing for the city. And then we have these Mesopotamian dragons, where it has the head and neck of a snake, the front paws of a lion, the hind legs of an eagle, and the tail of a scorpion. And the dragon is associated with Marduk, the patron god of the city. And I don't know if you saw was it the Immortals, the movie that came out? There was a lot of art history in the Immortals, and they have a big fight in front of the gate of Ishtar. They're time traveling superheroes, so they can do this kind of thing. All right, now we're going to go to Achaemenid. Are we done with this slide? Anybody need more time? Moving on. All right, where is the Middle East in this map? Right, just to the right of Africa, and then we're going to look for Iran. Where is Iran on this map? What color is Iran? We know where Iraq is, correct? Iraq is this like kind of light purpley, like light pink color. Just to the right of it, this big green country right here, that is Iran. And then we're going to go to Persepolis. The word Persepolis means the city of Persians. and it's known for its monumental art and architecture. And during the Achaemenid Empire, you can see the borders of the empire. So Iran is in this area right here, and their empire went all the way past Egypt into Libya, and it went all the way up into the Greece and Macedonia, and all the way nearly to India. And the two kings are Darius II and Xerxes. Darius II is the father, Xerxes is the son, and we're going to look at Persepolis, the audience hall of Darius and Xerxes. And so this audience hall is a visual microcosm of the Achaemenid Empire. It has the sculptural decoration shows that the Persian king ruled over all of the subjugated ambassadors and vassals. And in this this relief that we're going to look at, all the rulers of the empire are shown bringing an endless tribute to the kings. We're going to look at the Apadana main hall and the hypostyle plan. So this is what it looks like today. And I want you to know what a hypostyle hall is. Write down this term. The building that we're looking at is Egyptian, but it's the same concept. And then this is the building that we're looking at now. A hypostyle hall is a large room, basically something like the size of the commons that we have here at school or a gymnasium. All right, it's about that size, but they didn't have the technology at that time to have it as open space. In order to keep the roof from caving in, you had to use multiple columns and pillars to hold the roof up. So it's a massive hall, but there's also a ton of pillars or columns holding up the roof. Favorite style of what? Uh, I do like Ionic, but these things are pretty cool because they have twin bulls on it. The question was, what's my favorite style of column? When we get into the Greek art, we'll see the Ionic, and one of the reasons why I like the Ionic is that I took a virtual tour to the Stoa that's right next to the Acropolis, and there's a staircase that goes up around, and you can just quite literally reach out and touch it, and you get to be like be right there with a column. I like Doric. All right, so you're a simple guy. Yeah. All right, so this is what the hall would have looked like at that time, and it's held up by these columns. And so a column is a large cylinder. It is a structural device meant to hold up the roof. And then the top of a column is called a capital. The middle of the column is called the shaft. And then the bottom of the column is called the base. And you can, James and I were just having a conversation about columns. And the main difference between the columns that we were discussing was the capitals, right? So I like the Ionic capital. He likes the Doric capital. But basically they're the same column. Anyways, so we can see these double-headed bull uh, capitals on these columns, which I think these things are kind of cool. But we're kind of here to see these relief sculptures and the relief. So this is a relief sculpture that's been painted here, and we have lions fighting the bulls, and in the center we have a king, and people are presenting their wares to the king, and you can see here on another part again with the lions fighting the bulls, and then you have these soldiers that are facing the middle here. to the relief sculptures. And the subject of the sculpture is conquered people giving their wealth to the king. It is a procession, and it's making the king look more powerful. It shows his authority. So there's this endless procession of other rulers giving their wealth to the king. They're giving him homage. Now, this is the empire right here, and then but Greece is becoming a problem over here, and Persia is making unfair trading practices with Greece, and Persia is making better trading deals with Greek rivals. So this is all making the Greeks angry. And the Greek colonies near Persia, that's this little strip of purple over here on the left. All right, these are Greek colonies on a Persian like border, and the Greek colonies near uh, Persia are forced to pay tribute to Persia, but they're not part of the Persian Empire, so that makes them kind of teed off. So in 498 BC, 2 years after Persepolis was built, the Greeks sailed over and they set fire to Sardis. And basically, it was Athens, and there was a nearby city. I can't remember the name. It'll come up in these notes. But these two cities, so I'm going to go back to these. There's Greek colonies on these islands right here, and they're calling back to Greece mainland, and Athens is right here, and they're saying, "Hey, the Persians are being unfair to us. Can you help us out?" So Greece sends troops and ships, and they go and they burn down Sardis. What this does is this makes the Persian king really angry, and so uh, 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 he has to he's going to get his revenge, but revenge isn't going to come right now. So he hires a servant, and his only job is that when he brings the food, tells the king to remember the Athenians, the ones that came and burned down Sardis. Anyways, long story short, eventually the Persians, their army goes around through Macedonia and down, and then they attack Athens. Their fleet, their navy comes and attacks Athens, and during the Greco-Persian Wars, and they burn down Athens in 480 BC. And they finally got the revenge. They burned Athens to the ground 20 years after Persepolis was built. And Persepolis would remain an important site until it was sacked, looted, and burned under Alexander the Great of Macedon in 330 BC. And so this is Athens burning down by the Persians, and then the Greeks eventually get their revenge by burning down the audience hall of Xerxes and Darius. It was raised by Alexander the Great in retaliation for the Persian sack of the Athenian Acropolis, 170 years after the Persepolis was built, and 150 years after Athens burned. All right, are there any questions about anything in I'm going to say my guess would be marble. All right, you don't. What you do is you burn down all the wood that's holding it up, all right, and then you take the marble back home with you. All right, you put it on ships and you take it back home. All right, and that's all right. We're going to come into this term later on. It's called spolia, Spolia, and so what you're looking at right here is yes, marble doesn't burn, but you can burn the rest of it, and then you can knock over the columns. You can knock over, you can make the roof cave in and knock over walls, and then oh, look at all this wonderful marble here. You know, we can just take it back. So, yes, that's what they did with it. That's a good question. Any other questions about Mesopotamia? How are we doing on time? Yeah, it is 6. We can jump into the next chapter. Let's go to go to the next empty page of your sketchbook. At the top in the header, you're going to write chapter 3, Egypt. All right, so much art history and never enough time to cover it all. So let's go run through the art museum. We are in chapter 3. Let me fix this. Sorry. All right, don't forget to write chapter 3 big and bold at the top of your page. And as a reminder that, and then go and write the page number that you start this chapter on into the table of contents. And this is also a reminder the 5 hand drawn sketches per chapter. I'll be grading that when you turn in your sketchbooks when we take the test. All right. It's a chapter so big I had to break it up into parts. Now, what continent is Egypt in? Africa. Where is Africa? Yes, the easiest continent to find. It has a very distinctive shape. Yes. And then, what is what? Yeah, so Egypt is sometimes part of the Middle East. Yeah. All right, and then we're looking for Egypt. Where in Africa is Egypt? Yeah, right. Very top right. All right, and as we zoom in on Egypt, I do want you to notice this line right here. What is this line? It is the Nile River. And notice the little bit of green that's around the Nile. All right, the Nile gives everything water. In a desert that has no water, the Nile is the single source of water. So all the civilization is based around the Nile. All right, I want you to know Upper Egypt. The weird thing is that Upper Egypt is in the lower part of the picture, but it's the higher part. All right, so the goddess of the Upper Egypt is Nekbet. Correct. Nekbet's animal is a vulture. And Upper Egypt is dry and rocky. All right, and the crown for Upper Egypt is this white bowling pin looking hat. Looks like dude is wearing a bowling pin. All right. Now let's go to Lower Egypt. The goddess for the Lower Egypt is Wadjet, and her animal is a cobra. Here's some cool fan art for Wadjet. And Lower Egypt's crown is like a red chair. It looks like they have a chair on their head. Is that the slide you wanted? All right. Are we good? Wadjet. Wadjet. All right. Now, there are two crowns of Egypt. There's the Lower Egypt and Upper Egypt. Upper Egypt is the bowling pin. Lower Egypt is the red chair. When Egypt is united, you put the two crowns together and you have a double crown. And you can see in various Egyptian art the double crown, and that is a symbol of united Egypt. Also, you can see in various parts of Egyptian art where you have a vulture and a cobra together. That is also a symbol of united Egypt. The vulture is Upper Egypt, the cobra is Lower Egypt. And I want you to know that this weird hat that Egyptians wear is called a nemes. And the nemes is supposed to look like an animal. Can you tell what animal it's supposed to look like from the front? I wish I had a picture of it from the front. That's a good guess. It's an animal we already talked about. Cobra. The neck of the cobra that flares out, that is what the nemes is supposed to represent. A couple things I wanted to point out. That's the nemes right there. And then there's the united Egyptian crown, the double crown. And then later on, I'll talk about the crook and the flail. But that is another Egyptian symbol. And then, so let's talk about space in Egyptian painting for a second. You don't need to write that down. I just do want you to understand space. All right. So, with outer space, why do we call it space? Because it has so much space in it. It goes on to infinity with nothing. You can go in any direction for infinity in space. Now, in art, we want to have it look like we have space. So in this painting right here, can you imagine if you were to be put in this painting? If you were to spend a day in this painting, where could you go? You could hang out with these people in the foreground. You can hang out with these people in the middle ground. It looks like you can even run around. You can go way to the back. You could visit this building in the distance, and you can even go farther back. It looks like there might be a lake back there with some hills, and you can even go past that. This painting has lots of space in it. It looks like not only do you see it flat, is it a flat surface, but you can go back into it. And that's kind of what they do in like a theater, like you ever, like in the auditorium, and they have these curtains on the side, and the curtains are they go back into space. But this is kind of a shallow space that if I were to spend a day in this environment, I could only go maybe like 20, 30 feet back into space, and then I'm stopped here. Whereas in this painting, I can go all the way to the hills back there. This painting has more space than this stage. And in paintings that look like they have like a stage presence, it looks like I can go back into this painting maybe 8 feet, because these cherubs are holding up a backdrop of this right here. But there's like a wall back there. And then there is a very shallow space of Egyptian art. Egyptian is very shallow. And when I look at Egyptian art, everything is right up against me. And I think of Egyptian art as being on a ledge, and I only have about maybe 2 feet of depth of space. If this guy wants to go be on the other side of the woman, he has to quite literally pass right in front of her with no space between them. And that's how I feel about Egyptian art. Egyptian art has very shallow space in it. I do not want to spend the day in this painting because I would be pressed up against the picture plane and the background. And then that gives us very twisted perspective where it smashes everything up against the picture plane. And that's why we get this twisted perspective of the figures, which I talked about last chapter. And we are going to stop there for today and pick up with a story about the Egyptian gods and goddesses.